Vitor Roque. I'm sure you've already heard his name numerous times. During the last year, the 18-year-old Brazilian striker has made a name for himself at Club Athletico Paranaense and with the Brazilian under-20 squad. And by now he's one of the biggest and most talked about talents in the world. Of course, a lot of big European clubs are interested in him, but especially for Barcelona, Vitor Roque would be the perfect player for the coming decades. They even need a player exactly like him. In this video we're going to take a look at why that's the case, so make sure to stay tuned. First of all, we need to take a look at Barcelona's current options in the striker position. There is 34-year-old Lewandowski, who is still world class and he can probably perform at the highest stage for the next 2 or 3 years. But apart from him, there's not even a real striker. You've got Ansu Fati and Ferran Torres who can play in that role, but it's not their best position, and for both of them it's uncertain whether they're going to make it at Barca. So obviously there's not too much depth in this position, which is why another striker like Vitor Roque is more of a necessity than just a reinforcement. But there's even more to it. Lewandowski is already 34, so eventually Barca will need a replacement for him. And rather than waiting for the moment Lewandowski leaves to go and find one, it's probably better to already get a replacement for him now who can grow under Lewandowski and take some time to adapt to the club. Vitor Roque is again the perfect player for this. He's only 18 at the moment, so immediately using him as the first striker would be too much of a risk, and he won't mind just being a substitute at a club like Barcelona for his first 1 or 2 years. He would just give Barcelona more depth in the striker position while Lewandowski is still the main striker. But in that time he could adapt to Barcelona and learn a lot from Lewandowski, who is one of the most experienced strikers out there. So by the time that Lewandowski is about 36 or 37 and starts to decline, Barca will have a 20 to 21-year-old Vitor Roque on their hands who knows the club, has adapted to the system and has probably become an even better player. But now you might be thinking, what if he's not able to adapt during that period, if he becomes kind of a Ferran Torres 2.0? Well, then first of all, Barca can still be patient with him because he would only be about 21, and they would have had the time to find another striker to replace Lewandowski with if they would see that Vitor Roque was still not enough of a reliable option in the striker position. So as you see, Vitor Roque would be quite a low risk signing. Barca needs someone to eventually replace Lewandowski with, they need to sign a striker at some point anyway, and someone who's probably got enough quality to play for Barca, who can still be the second option for about 2 years, will be given the patience and time to adapt, and who can learn from one of the best strikers of all time is just the perfect player for Xavi's team. The last thing that Barcelona should do is wait too long to sign a replacement for Lewandowski. That's what they did with Luis Suarez. They never bought a replacement for him. Griezmann was the one who kinda took over his position once he left, but he wasn't a pure striker and didn't really fit into the team. And consequently, out of a sudden, Barca had lost someone up front who could produce goals, even though Suarez wasn't as good anymore as he once was in his last years. The only reason why Barca didn't really feel the effects of this was because of Messi, who could still produce enough goals to carry the team. But once he left too, Barca's main goal scorer was Memphis Depay. Though he might be a skilled player, he wasn't near as effective in front of goal as Messi or Suarez. And consequently, Barcelona suddenly had a real tough time scoring goals. That problem only got solved when Aubameyang got signed and especially when Lewandowski got signed. So if Barca don't find a replacement for Lewandowski soon enough, they'll probably end up with the same problems. Long story short, they need replacements and Vitor Roque would just be the perfect player. Next, he's just the kind of striker that Barcelona needs. That probably sounds quite vague, doesn't it? Well, think about the type of striker that the greatest Barcelona teams of all time had. Romario, Eto'o, Suarez. They were all skilled players who are not only deadly in front of goal, but could also shoot from distance, dribble, who are good at link-up play and who had quite a high football IQ for a striker. You've got strikers like Lukaku or Haaland who are not that known for being technical and being able to dribble, but all of Barca's greatest strikers did have this quality of being very all-round and being way more than just the one who finishes the chances. Probably because that type of striker fits the type of football that Barca wants to play. Have a lot of possession, have a lot of movements. For that you need a striker who can do more than just finish chances. Yes indeed, Vitor Roque is that kind of striker. He's not only clinical in front of goal, he can also retain possession, he can dribble, he can shoot from distance, he's just very all-round. And that's exactly the kind of striker that Barcelona needs. Then it's also good to remember that if there's one position where La Masia doesn't really produce great players all the time, it's the striker position. I mean, none of the best pure strikers in Barcelona's history came from La Masia. And for any other position, there are legendary players who came from La Masia. That means that if Barcelona ever need a new midfielder, they could easily look at La Masia and there will always be more than one option to choose from. But the same doesn't really go with the striker position. They do have 18-year-old Victor Barbera right now, who might become a great player, but then again, players like Ansu Fati and Gavi were already playing for the first team at that age, so it might be best to look elsewhere for a good striker in the future. And again, Vitor Roque is probably the best option Barca have. Lastly, if Barcelona don't buy him, he will probably go to another big European club, and Barca might end up regretting not buying him. It's not like Barca have the choice between buying him or not, it's rather the choice between buying him or letting him go to another team that is probably a big concurrent for Barca in the Champions League. So yeah, we don't want to be the only team without a great striker within 4 years from now, and Vitor Roque might be the striker that we need to really compete for trophies in the future. Barcelona would probably need to pay somewhere around 40 million euros for Vitor Roque, which is not nothing, but looking at all the benefits that he would give Barcelona, it definitely seems worth it. He could be the perfect replacement for Lewandowski that Barca needs, while being a player who still agrees to being a substitute for about 2 years first. He is the perfect kind of striker for Barcelona, and if there's one position that we know Barcelona usually can't rely on La Masia for, then it's the striker position. So considering all of those things, you see why Vitor Roque would just be the perfect signing for Barcelona this summer. That was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion on Vitor Roque in the comments down below. Força Barça, and have a good day.